Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, desolators, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome, and let's go back to Yemen again, and this time take a little closer look at what's going on behind the scenes in Yemen. Why is this war going on? What is the Saudi Arabian goal? What is the United States goal? And of course, you dig a little deeper, and you find out there's actually a massive amount of information out there about resources, oil and gas in Yemen. And if you look at the charts going back to 1986, you see these oil production spikes, and then it peaks around 2000 and has been in decline ever since, and certainly is in decline now during the war with a lot of infrastructure being damaged. But the other peculiar thing about that is consumption has been consistent. So, in other words, the local economy is consistently, since oil has been produced, only using domestically a pretty relative amount that's maintained consistent, and the rest is, of course, exported. Oil sector has become 70% of total state revenue. And looking at a map, they do have a pretty decent infrastructure, although I'm sure it needs some upgrading. Ports, pipelines, and refineries. So there's Yemen almost seems to exist only to produce oil and then maintain a population of 28 million, who a good portion of which live in poverty. So in 2001, at the peak, they were producing 455,000 barrels a day, and then by 2006, it had dropped to 305,000 barrels a day. And I don't really have any numbers for the last 10 years. But at that time in 2006, they still had proven reserves of 2.7 billion barrels. So there's a lot of oil left in the ground there. And as it turns out, there's a history of Western companies and Western governments knowing that there's a huge deposit there. And they've known going back into the 1960s. And more recently, we have some events that took place. 2005, there was arbitration between Yemen and ExxonMobil and Hunt Oil Company, who had claims on exploration lots in Yemen, and Yemen expropriated these lots. So there's a little tug of war going on between these corporate oil giants in Yemen. And I was surprised to look at a list, well, attached below, that pretty much every single energy and oil company in the world has leased plots for exploration in Yemen and have explored all around that country. But it turns out that there's more to the story, because in 2009 there was a WikiLeaks leak, and it turns out the U.S. government and the Barack Obama administration and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State knew about vast new natural gas discoveries and a bunch of new discoveries of offshore reserves as well. And they became aware because they were actually watching the increases in production and the building of more pipeline structure in reports coming out of Yemen. So they're keeping a close eye on that. And then a 2002 report came out of large offshore deposits, and that there's a lot more evidence emerging of large untapped reserves of oil and gas. And particularly what's interesting is that a lot of the oil that's being discovered now, or what they think these huge reserves that are out there, are underneath the northern part of Yemen that borders Saudi Arabia, where the Houthis are. So, interesting connection there. And there's a 2014 report, even just 2 years ago, that came up with these theories about huge oil reserves in northern Yemen. And so that seems to be a good focal point about what this could be about, because Saudi Arabia basically is decimating Yemen now, and will make sure it stays a failed state, and will prop up the United States, and Saudi Arabia will end up propping up a puppet government, and then they'll bring in maybe some global banks to get Yemen on the hook, and then the exploitation of their reserves and their resources will commence. And apparently that is the goal for Oman at some point as well. So watch yourselves out there in Oman. And so there we have it. We have, as one would suspect, even though Yemen is not known for being a huge oil supplier, Yemen is not publicly touted as a country that has a lot of oil. In fact, their oil production has been in decline. And it's another one of those countries where you think maybe they want to basically have a piggy bank of oil, and they'll bring it online slowly as they complete the occupation. But there we have it, oil in Yemen. What a shocker! I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?